was nothing made that was made. And him was the life, and the life was the light of men. This morning, I want to say this. This morning, I wish the member of Angliston was here in charge of education. You know, in the beginning was the word. And I looked this morning, I read in the papers, which I understood that the police them were back in the school. But I want to say this. Put prayer back in the school. I remember some years ago, I used to go to the school at lunchtime, different school, and we used to pray, and they stop us from coming to the school for praying. And that's the issue here. The police can't solve the problem. Prayer is the key, Mr. Prime Minister. They put God first, ain't nothing gonna go wrong. What can the police do? Put God first. Put prayer back in the school. I entreat you all this morning, put prayer. Get some leaders, get some pastors, get some prayer warriors to pray to cover our children. We listen, and a lot of young men are dying and going to a Christless hell this morning. And also, I want to drop this nugget before we pray. I listened to the budget debate in entirety to everybody speak. I listened to the Prime Minister, I listened to the opposition leader, and I enjoyed the budget. But I listened to the one about the $53 million Prime Minister, and I listened to all of that, but I hear nothing but the church. Remember, I always said when I first started here, remember the church, remember the poor. It's 7 months now. Yes, the government is doing good, but I want to know what's going on. Sunday, meet me to my church on Sunday morning if you could. He said, who put the hands in the cookie jar? Who, me? It wasn't me then. Who? Meet me to church Sunday morning. I can tell you who put the hands in the cookie jar. We had gone to bow your heads, lock your chin on your chest. Don't miss it. Father God, in the name of Jesus, God, I thank you right now. God, for this day that you has made. What a fellowship, what a joy divine. Leaning on the everlasting arms. God, you said, if my people which are called by my name shall humble themselves, seek my face, and pray and turn from the victory, then shall we hear from heaven, and then you will heal our land. God, we ask you, God, to heal our land, God, in the name of Jesus, God. And we thank you, God, for everything that what you're doing. We thank you, God, for your blessing upon the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, God, because we know that we are not wrestling against flesh and blood, but against spiritual wickedness in high places. God, we thank you right now, God. We just praise your name. God, man, we just glorify you, because your name, God, is worthy to be praised above all names, God. Oh, God, you speak to the troublesome wave, and you said, peace, be still, and there was a calm. God, we decree and we declare miracles right now, God. I pray for every member of our parliament in this place and that who in here, God. God, you know them by name and by nature, God. Touch their hearts right now. In the name of Jesus, God, we lift your name up. In Jesus' name, I pray. Let everybody say, Amen. Our Father, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. May the peace of God be with you, that passes all understanding. Remember, put prayer back in the school.
Philip Davis, Chester Cooper, Fred Mitchell, Glennis Hannah Martin, Obadiah Wilchcomb, Alfred Sayers, Dr. Michael Darville, Clay Sweeting, Keith Bell, Wayne Monroe, Vaughn Miller, Jobeth Colby Davis, Ginger Moxie, Mario Boleg, Jomo Campbell, Basil McIntosh, Miles LaRoda, Pia Glover Roll, Lisa Ramming, Zane Lightborn, Dr. Hubert Minnis, Jamal Strawn, John Pinder, Marcus Rule, Leon Lundy, Kirk Cornish, Wade Watson, Leonardo Lightborn, Leslie Miller Bryce, Leroy Major, Sylvanus Petty, Michael Bonnaby, Michael Pintard, James Quasi Thompson, Aram Lewis, Shannon Don Cartwright, Adrian Gibson, Adrian White.
Thank you, Honorable. Thank you. Honorable members, I need to take care of some housekeeping matters. Firstly, I'm advised that at the last sitting of the House, two ministers gave verbal answers to questions number 1, 2, and 4. I just want to remind the House that answers to written questions have to be answered in writing and tabled for the record of the House. I'm therefore requesting that those answers be tabled at the next sitting of the House. Secondly, I need to make changes to the membership of the Public Accounts Committee. I need to remove the 2 cabinet ministers from the committee and replace them with 2 other members. The 2 replacements are a member of the Honorable Member for Southern Shores and the Honorable Member for Nassau Village. Not Nassau Village. And the Honorable Member for Mount Moriah. Just an adjustment to that. So the 2 replacements are the Honorable Member for Southern Shores and the Honorable Member for Mount Moriah. Thank you, Honorable Members. Also, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all of the health professionals in this country. For the first time in a long time, all members are able to sit in this assembly at one time. I don't see the Honorable Member for Tall Pines, who is the minister, to give him special thanks in regards to take to those persons. But I would like to just say, we at the House of Assembly say thank you. We are grateful because now we are able to sit all members in this place. We will now go down the order of business. Introduction and swearing in of new members. Laying of documents by ministers. No laying of documents? Okay. Statements and communications by ministers. The chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Rumkey and San Salvador.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, on behalf of the government and people of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, last week, I was delighted to welcome on their royal visit their Royal Highnesses, the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge. Their visit formed part of their tour of the Caribbean to mark the Platinum Jubilee of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, and took place from Thursday, the 24th of March, 2022, to Saturday, the 26th of March, 2022. By any standard, 70 years of service is historic and remarkable. In my toast to the royal couple, we ask them to convey to Her Majesty our best wishes for continuing good health and happiness. Madam Speaker, by this communication, I wish to share with the House the background, details, and outcome of the royal visit. As part, Madam Speaker, of the strong shift the government of the Bahamas is making in its conduct of foreign policy, during the COP26 conference on climate change in Glasgow last November, I invited a number of heads of state to visit the Bahamas. Some indicated a particular interest in attending events associated with our 50th anniversary of independence, while others indicated an interest in attending outside of that period. Visits by world leaders attract an enormous amount of attention and help strengthen ties between our countries and our people. In recent years, the Bahamas has had to rely on the support and goodwill of many nations during our time of national tragedy to support our national development. At separate receptions held during the conference, I was pleased to meet Prince Charles, the Prince of Wales, and Prince William, the Duke of Cambridge. He immediately and enthusiastically accepted my invitation to visit. Madam Speaker, the 2-day official visit by the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge marks a significant development in the relationship between the United Kingdom and the Bahamas. We are pleased that we are one of only 3 Caribbean countries being visited as part of the Platinum Jubilee celebrations. This reinforces our wish to project the Bahamas as a leading voice in the region. As we approach almost 50 years of sovereignty, the United Kingdom continues to be one of our closest friends and allies. Honorable members may not be aware that each year, when hurricanes threaten us, the United Kingdom continues to provide essential support by following the hurricanes with British Navy vessels to provide vital rescue and relief efforts. Also, as one of the G7 countries, the UK is well placed to support our international position with investors and lenders through guarantees and other measures. Following on from the United Kingdom's departure from the European Union, or Brexit, as it is widely known, we note changes in their foreign policy priorities. We want the Bahamas to be at the forefront of consideration of any enhanced trading relationships. Discussions are underway about providing more scholarships for Bahamian students and exploring ways to expand the exchange of goods and services between our 2 countries. In particular, we are keen for members of the Bahamian creative and cultural communities to have an opportunity to work in the UK. Madam Speaker, as well as celebrating the Platinum Jubilee, the itinerary for the royal visit was designed to achieve specific objectives. Our royal guests were accompanied by an international media contingent of approximately 70 accredited journalists representing every major media house in the world. Therefore, each place that the delegation visited and each event and activity they engaged in received global press coverage. We wish to seize upon this significant opportunity for the Bahamas to shift how we are seen on the world stage, as well as sending a strong message that post, during, and post-COVID, the Bahamas is open for business. We also wished to project the Bahamian culture to show that we are much more than just sun, sand, and sea. Madam Speaker, to support this communication, and I now wish to speak to the full itinerary of the visit. For this communication, I will highlight some of the critical activities. Immediately upon their arrival on Thursday, the 24th of March, their Royal Highnesses paid a courtesy call to the office of the Prime Minister. My wife, Anne-Marie, and I were pleased to welcome them, along with members of our parliamentary team, their present, senior staff at OPM, who were also present. During a private 30-minute meeting with the Duke and Duchess, I was pleased and impressed that the Duke remains so fully engaged with issues around climate change, significantly as they impact countries like our beloved Bahamas. We continued the discussions we began in Glasgow last November. And as I said to the Duke publicly at the Governor General's reception the following evening, and I quote what I said, "While the environmental threats we face are global and challenge all of humanity, I believe that he and I share an abiding faith in the ingenuity and ability of human beings to overcome these challenges by coming together and working together to do the right thing." The following morning, their Royal Highnesses attended a special combined school assembly at the Sybil Strawn Primary School, Carmichael Road. This special assembly used the virtual learning platform to virtually connect all schools across the Bahamas. And I would wish to thank the Minister of Education for ensuring to that connectivity. The event was to highlight both the learning loss experienced by our young people during our COVID-19 pandemic and the importance we are placing on education as a key priority to our national development. In a warm and moving address, the Duchess spoke eloquently about the importance of education and the warmth of the welcome they received from the young people. The look of joy on the faces of the young people at Sybil Strawn School was wonderful to behold. Madam Speaker, afterwards, the royal couple attended the Garden of Remembrance, where we were pleased to recognize the healthcare workers. They were on the front line of our country's efforts to manage the COVID-19 pandemic. We owed so much to these dedicated people and were pleased to have them included in the itinerary. Madam Speaker, no visit to the Bahamas would be complete without experiencing our culture. And so the Duke and Duchess experienced a taste of the Bahamas in a cultural event in Parliament Square, which included performances by the Royal Bahamas Police Force Band and a selection of jungle groups. They were impressed and overwhelmed, as I was, by the extravagant enthusiasm of the performers and members of the public who braved the rain to display to our guests some of that which is the best of us. Madam Speaker, if ever we needed reminding, this is who we are. This is what a Bahamian welcome is. And no matter who you are, where you come from, this is how we remind people why it is still better in the Bahamas. In the government's blueprint for change, we committed to promoting sloop sailing as our national sport. And so, after the cultural event, the Duke and Duchess took part in a special Platinum Jubilee Regatta in Montague Harbor. I hope that Bahamians and international audiences were as excited as we are by the potential of this sport in the Bahamas and felt encouraged and feel encouraged to continue to participate in it. At the Governor General's reception in the evening, hundreds of Bahamians from all walks of life had the opportunity to meet with the Duke and Duchess. This is how friendships between countries evolve, when people get to meet on a human level and have the opportunity to interact directly. Madam Speaker, it was essential to us that the Duke and Duchess saw something of our family islands. Even the tough times they have experienced in recent years, we hoped that a visit to Abaco and Grand Bahama would help support the continued healing among the people as our government continues to work to help and restore them to their former glories. And so it was. In Abaco, the Duke and Duchess saw and heard for themselves about the impact of Hurricane Dorian. During a visit to the Daystar Church in Dunderstown, they could engage directly with Abaconians and afterwards laid a wreath in memory of those who lost their lives. I understand the couple were visibly moved. Later on, at the fish fry, the Duchess's handy efforts in making conch salad impressed many Bahamians, as did her enthusiastic approach to eating the conch pistol. Images of them at the fish fry were on the front pages of newspapers worldwide. In Grand Bahama, the royal party visited the Grand Bahama Children's Home, then the Coral Vita Project, one of the winners of the Duke's Earthshot Prize of £1 million. Located in Freeport, Coral Vita is the world's first land-based commercial coral farm. This farm cultivates 24 different types of indigenous coral using innovative methods and practices. After facility tour, attended by marine biology students from the University of the Bahamas, the couple traveled by boat to snorkel and to plant a coral reef in our waters. At COP26, the Bahamas began projecting itself as a leading voice in efforts to address the impacts of climate change. And so our royal visitors needed to appreciate firsthand the impact that climate change is already having on the Bahamas, along with the need for carbon-producing countries to support us in our efforts to make our country better able to withstand these impacts. The royal couple then returned to New Providence on Saturday evening, and after receiving a royal salute from our combined forces, they took their leave and flew back to London. Madam Speaker, as is so often the case nowadays, much media attention is focused on the issue of cost. This attention is welcome insofar as it helps to ensure prudence and transparency in public spending, attributes that were sorely lacking during the previous administration. It has been only 4 days since the visit ended. We are still awaiting the final accounting. However, some of the more fanciful speculations of cost must be dispensed. So I wish to immediately place some of the facts about the expenditure underlying the visit on the record of this House. As is customary with royal visits, costs are shared between the sovereign grant, the host country, and the UK Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office. This visit was no exception. In line with this, the royal household borne the cost of travel to and from the Bahamas. A corporate donor sponsored the Governor General's reception. In line with the royal protocol, we are asked not to publicize private sponsorship too much to detract from the event. The Governor of the Bahamas bore accommodation costs for 2 nights. Other third-party costs, such as the cultural events, which to showcase, were paid to Bahamian artisans and creative production talents. This was our choice. We wanted to treat our visitors to those displays and stimulate our creative economy, which has been flatlined in recent years. All other costs, such as security, domestic travel, etc., are the internal costs of various government ministries and agencies, and therefore will not require additional expenditure outside of existing budgets. This is the usual practice adopted by all countries regarding all official visitors. Madam Speaker, the royal tour inspired a degree of commentary about the monarchy's role in Belize, Jamaica, and yes, the Bahamas, in the United Kingdom as well, and in fact, worldwide. This was expected, especially in modern democracies such as ours, where the right to freedom of expression remains fundamental and constitutionally protected. Our view is that the Duke and Duchess were here as our guests. And as such, we extended the kinds of courtesies we extend to our visitors. They were well aware of the conversations surrounding their visit and the public discussions about the past and future role of the monarchy in our country. I wish to briefly draw the House's attention to the statement issued by the Duke on their return to the United Kingdom. Foreign tours, and I quote, "Foreign tours are an opportunity to reflect. You learn so much, what is on the minds of prime ministers, the hopes and ambitions of school children, the day-to-day challenges faced by families and communities. I know that this tour has brought into even sharper focus questions about the past and the future. In Belize, Jamaica, and the Bahamas, that future is for the people to decide upon." As we move forward in our celebrations of the 50th anniversary of independence, I hope there is lively discussion and debate about our future, about who we are and what we want to be. I agree with the Duke when he says that it is for the Bahamian people to decide upon their future. For now, It is enough to say that my administration will listen to, participate in, and fully support these discussions. In time, we can be sure that the will of the Bahamian is always being fully expressed. Madam Speaker, thousands of Bahamians contributed to making this royal visit the success it was. I want to thank them all. As a tourist destination, we must seize every opportunity for the world to see us in action. And my goodness, we showed the world who we are. Two Bahamians deserve special mention among the many who committed so much time and effort to ensure this visit's success. Mr. Jack Thompson, in the Office of the Governor General, brought his many years of valuable experience in public service and arranging ceremonial events. I wish to pay tribute to him and thank him for his service. But, Madam Speaker, the person who, above all else, deserves our heartfelt thanks is one of our own honorable members. As the chairperson of the group tasked to organize the royal visit, she drove forward every single detail in the conception and planning of this visit, with seemingly endless reservoirs of energy, intelligence, dedication, charm, and grace, sometimes during particularly sensitive moments. I'm sure the House will join me in showing our gratitude to the member for Seabreeze. Her Excellency, Mrs. Leslie Bryce. She has made us all so very, very proud. And on behalf of the government and people of our Commonwealth, I say thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Order that the communication be brought up.
Okay.
Order the document to die on the table. Further statement and communications by ministers. The chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Garden Hills.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I stand before you in this honorable house as a proud representative of the people of the great constituency of Garden Hills and the Minister of Youth, Sports and Culture. A man who knows full well the opportunity sports provides. Like with every game, there are highs and lows. Someone will win and someone has to lose. But before the game even starts, one must practice and prepare for competition. Oftentimes, you only see the coaches, trainers, and medical staff. But the behind-the-scenes roles played by our unsung heroes are just as important. Madam Speaker, the local sporting community mourns the passing of one of our national heroes, a National Hall of Famer, Mrs. Anita Doherty. She has the consummate professional and a long-serving principal of the Bishop Michael Eldon High School, who crafted her skills inside the classroom and the sporting arenas. Mrs. Doherty passed away late Sunday, early Monday morning. I wish to extend heartfelt condolences to her immediate family, the school, sporting, and church families, as well as those who knew her. May the soul of this Bahamian icon rest in peace. Madam Speaker, it's on the back of persons like Ms. Doherty sports in this country is able to flourish. It's through their hard work, dedication, and commitment we are successful. Persons like Ms. Doherty believe in the country and encourage persons like myself and others who served before me as minister to find the diamonds in the rough. We are able to do just that through organized play. Madam Speaker, I wish to formally advise of plans by my ministry to revive the Bahama Games. Timing it to correspond with this country's 50th anniversary of national independence, the Golden Jubilee Bahama Games are scheduled to be held July 6th to the 14th, 2023. Madam Speaker, the 5 previous versions of this Olympic-style sports festival occurred in 1989, 91, 95, and 98, and most recently in 2001, some 21 years ago. Such a time lapse conflicted with the long-term intent of the Games, which had always been designed to occur in 3-year cycles. Thusly, the approaching 6th edition of the Games ought to have occurred in July 2004. Madam Speaker, 2004 was an Olympic year. And as is the global practice and convention, my ministry has always conformed with the international principles of not scheduling major multi-sport events during an Olympic year. In fact, all previous Bahama Games have never occurred in an Olympic year. And in that regard, although slated to occur in 2004, the 6th edition of the Bahama Games were rescheduled for 2006. Plans for the event, however, were interrupted by extensive and catastrophic after effects of destructive hurricanes such as Charlie, Ivan, Gordon, Francis, and Jean, all in 2004, and once more by Wilma, Katrina, and Joaquin a year later. Additionally, in the intervening period between 2004 and the present, a number of local natural disasters coupled with international financial induced shocks presented as barriers to the reinstitution of the Games. Madam Speaker, in this present quest to reinstitute the Bahama Games, we should all be reminded of the importance of the Bahama Games as a tool of national integration and sports development. Here reference is made to words by this country's 2nd Minister of Youth, Sports and Culture and the founding father of the Bahama Games, the late Honorable Peter J. Bettel, MP, affectionately referred to as Pa Bees. For in his insight remarks at the official closing ceremony of the first Bahama Games in July 1989, Minister Bettel offered the following message of inspiration to delegations representing all the jurisdiction of our Commonwealth. And I quote, "Over the course of the past several days, we have confirmed each of your physical separated islands as being unique in their own right. At the same time, however, we succeeded in fusing our scattered islands into one consolidated and very dynamic nation. For just as each island possesses its own distinct individuality, each one likewise possesses a common physical and spiritual essence, fathered by one and the same Bahamas. We point to this feature of our patrimony as our strength upon which is grounded the unlimited potential of our young Commonwealth. In fact, our diversity is what will propel us onward, upward, together, well into and beyond the 21st century," end quote. Madam Speaker, in respect to such sentiments, members are further advised that the impending 6th Bahama Games will also be referred to as the Bahamas Golden Jubilee Games, as it will coincide with this country's 50th anniversary or its Golden Jubilee of national independence. Plans for the Games will accordingly be in full complement with the more formal ceremonies of state as traditionally organized by the appropriate government agencies. In particular, the customary independent secretariat. Reminded here is that similarly was their absolute technical and administrative cohesion in 1989 when the fourth edition of the Bahama Games coincided with that year's formal celebrations marking the 25th anniversary of the Silver Jubilee of this country's independence. So far as the 2023 Bahama Golden Jubilee Games are concerned, the Bahama Games Secretariat is already operational and has developed a template for the Golden Jubilee Games. Among its early recommendations are to once again pursue the Games tradition of maximizing the participation of a wide cross-section of suitable qualified members of the Bahamian community. The selected persons will be attached to a 12 volunteer committee that will assist the Games Secretariat. The intent is to have a widespread personal input and diverse ownership of the Golden Jubilee Games. Madam Speaker, toward that end, as in the past, members of those 12 committees traditionally amounted to 700 volunteers at minimum. Additionally, the 16 national sports federations and associations projected to participate in the Golden Jubilee Games will supply their own body of volunteers totaling of much as 600. Serving as referees, umpires, judges, table officials, scorers, timekeepers, and etc. Equipment managers and the various federations own particular juries of appeal. In providing a brief summary of the Golden Jubilee Games, the various fields of competition will be limited to competitive sports as defined by this country's national sports policy. Competition will further be limited to those disciplines identified under the country's national core sports program as adopted by the Bahamas government in 1978 and amended in 1992, 97, and 98. Preference was also given to those disciplines which offer opportunities for men as well as women. In this regard, general description of the Golden Jubilee Games is summarized hereafter with the 10 delegations of teams. The New Providence, Andros, Grand Bahama, Long Island, Abaco, Bimini and the Berry Islands, Exuma and Rugged Island, Ilucha, inclusive of Harbor Island and Spanish Wells, Columbus Isles, which is Cat Island, Rumkey, and St. Salvador, and Mica, Maguana, Inagua, Crooked Island, Acklands, and Long Island. Madam Speaker, the Golden Jubilee Games in 2023 will feature 15 official fields of competition, which is inclusive men and women. They are softball, basketball, track and field, lawn tennis, swimming, soccer, field and beach, volleyball, indoor and beach, bodybuilding, powerlifting, boxing, cycling, baseball, youth Olympic sailing, regatta sailing, and golf. Madam Speaker, let me say that the sport of golf has made tremendous strides in introducing young students to this wonderful game. The Bahamas Golf Federation was successful in its efforts to introduce the sports of golf into the public school curriculum of the Ministry of Education. In 2001, the very first National School Golf Championship was held at the 9-hole Blue Hills Golf Course. That competition was an overwhelming success, with 248 athletes competing, 112 of which came from the public school participating from both public and private institutions. This year's championships began last Friday and concluded Monday past, with students participating in the lower and upper primary boys and girls, junior girls, and senior boys and girls. Madam Speaker, the lower primary girls category was won by Windsor School, followed by Eva Hilton Primary School for the second place. In the upper primary school division, Eva Hilton Primary School prevailed as the winners, beating Queens College, Palmdale Primary, and Carlton Francis Primary, who came in second, third, and fourth, respectively. Madam Speaker, events such as this brings together different demographics, which makes competition fun, wholesome, and inclusive. Madam Speaker, it is against this backdrop that the vision of the Bahama Games was envisioned, an event which brings athletes from different islands together from national and friendly competition. Madam Speaker, in summary then, it is the intent of my ministry to periodically provide members with updates as plans progress towards making the Golden Jubilee Games a memorable one. One truly fitting to a people and a deserving of a country so blessed, and a people so awesome. May God bless the Commonwealth of the Bahamas.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Order that the communication be brought up. Order that the document do lie on the table. Further statement and communication by ministers?
No further statements.
No further. Communications by the clerk? Messages from the Governor General? Messages from the Senate? Motions for leave of absence, leave to resign, seat, and new writs? Presentations of petitions? Presentations of reports of committees? Adoption of reports of committees? First reading of bills? The chair recognizes the honorable member for West Grand, Bahama, and Bimini.
Madam Speaker, I beg leave to introduce and have read for the first time a copy of the following: a bill for an act to amend the Child Protection Act.
Order that the document be brought up. Is there a seconder? Thank you. It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read for the first time. A bill for an act to amend the Child Protection Act. Order that document to lie on the table. Order that the bill be read for the first time.
A bill for an act to amend the Child Protection Act.
For the first readings of bills, the chair recognizes the honorable member for Centerville.
Good morning, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I beg leave to move for the first reading of the following bills.
Pardon?
I beg leave to move for the first reading of the following bills. A bill for an act to amend the Criminal Procedure Code Act.
Order that document be brought up. Is there a seconder? Second. Thank you, honorable members. It has been moved and seconded that the bill be read, the following bill be read for the first time. A bill for an act to amend the Criminal Procedure Code Act. As many in favor will remain seated. Those opposed will stand. Order that the bill be read for the first time.
A bill for an act to amend the Criminal Procedure Code Act.
For the first reading of bills, the chair recognizes the honorable member for Centerville.
A bill for an act to amend the Juries Act. My apologies, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I beg leave to move for the first reading of the following act. A bill for an act to amend the Juries Act.
Thank you. Order the document be brought up. Is there a seconder? Thank you, honorable member. It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read for the first time. As many are in favor will remain seated. Those opposed will stand. A bill for an act to amend the Juries Act. Order that the bill be read for the first time.
A bill for an act to amend the Juries Act.
For the first reading of bills, the chair recognizes the honorable member for Centerville.
Madam Speaker, I beg leave to move for the first reading of the following act. A bill for an act to amend the Magistrates Act.
Thank you, honorable member. Is there a seconder? Order that the bill be brought up. It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read for the first time. All those in favor shall remain seated. Those opposed will stand. A bill for an act to amend the Magistrates Act. Order that the bill be read for the first time.
A bill for an act to amend the Magistrates Act.
For the first reading of bills, Chair recognizes the honorable member for Senate.
Madam Speaker, I beg leave to move for the first reading of the following bill. A bill for an act to amend the Evidence Act.
Thank you. Order the bill be brought up. It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read for the first time. As many are in favor will remain seated, those opposed will stand. A bill for an act to amend the Evidence Act. As many, order that the bill be read for the first time.
A bill for an act to amend the Evidence Act.
For the first reading of bills, the chair recognizes the honorable member for West Grand Bahama.
Madam Speaker, I wish to now move for a bill for an act to amend the Financial Transaction Reporting Act.
Order that the document be brought up. What a time today. What a time today. Boy, my nerves on me. Okay. Is there a seconder? Thank you, honorable member. It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read for a first time. A bill for an act to amend the Financial Transactions Reporting Act. As many are in favor will remain seated. Those opposed will stand. Order that the bill be read for the first time.
A bill for an act to amend the Financial Transactions Reporting Act.
No further first readings. Second reading committal bills. The chair recognizes the honorable member.
Madam Speaker, as we begin to debate a compendium of financial bills, I have received support from the opposition to include in the compendium the Financial Transaction Reporting Act, which was just read for the first time, Madam Speaker. Please.
Madam Speaker,
The chair recognizes the honorable member.
I spoke to the leader of government business this morning, and I told him that I would need to confirm. I have confirmed, but the support is not there to debate that piece of financial legislation today. It had been circulated yesterday evening, and then it was circulated again for a different draft. So the opposition wasn't in a position to know what they were reading until it was actually tabled. And therefore, we would request that this bill now tabled today be adjourned for debate on another day in accordance with the rules.
Thank you, honorable member. The chair recognizes.
Understood, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, honorable members. For the second reading in committee of bills. It's going to start debate. Okay. The chair recognizes as many. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Centerville. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Centerville.
Madam Speaker, I stand in this place not on my own strength, but on that of the great architect of the universe, to whom I am grateful every day. I also stand here on behalf of the wonderful people of Centerville. And as I pledged in my first presentation in this place, I intend to thank them at every opportunity for the privilege they have given me, not only to represent them, but to serve our beloved Bahama land. Madam Speaker, while on my feet, I use this opportunity to address the young people of my constituency and the country at large. We have witnessed for quite a while, and especially recently, the escalation of the senseless killing of young Bahamian men on our streets. And I find this loss to our country quite alarming. While there is much that we all can do to make life better for many of our people, we must be mindful that our country provides many opportunities to excel, no matter your background. There are countless examples of people who have overcome what may have seemed like insurmountable odds and have made a good life for themselves right here in the Bahamas. And to the young men and women of the Bahamas, you too can do the very same thing. I'm aware that some of you must contend with issues at home and in your neighborhoods that may be beyond your capacity to solve. I understand that you may not be able to fathom how you can achieve the lives that you dream of. Many of you may be prisoner to your sphere of awareness, thinking that a life of crime is the best option to quickly address whatever economic or social problems you find yourself in. But I am here to tell you that this is not the answer. You can make it out. This administration, Madam Speaker, under the dynamic leadership of the Honorable Prime Minister and member for Cat Island, Rumkey, and San Salvador, will do our best to advance the legislation, programs, and initiatives needed to assist you in doing better for yourselves. But you have to want to do better. You must realize that doing better takes effort. Doing better takes commitment. Doing better takes determination. I believe in you as young Bahamians, and I believe that we will get to better, not just for the few, but for the many. And I want to ensure you that your New Day government will not rest until our collective good becomes better and our better becomes best. Madam Speaker, I would like us all in this Commonwealth to be mindful that in our own very small way, we are all leaders in this country. And while there are more factors involved, we do not have all the answers all the time. But we must try to set an example for those who watch us. Though we are not infallible as members of this House, I do hope that we all can commit to contribute our efforts to the solution and not to the exacerbation of our country's problems. Madam Speaker, since I last spoke in this place, we have had many ups and downs in the Centerville community. We have suffered the loss of life through natural causes and from crime. From the Fort Hill in the north to Wolf Road in the south. But I wish to remind you, Centerville and the Bahamas, that there are more people praying for us than pulling against us. I wish to inform the country and the constituency that despite being bent by the recent troubles, our community is not broken. And as a matter of fact, I wish at this time to extend my sympathy to all the persons in the Centerville community and the Bahamas who have suffered recent losses. I would also like to bring to your attention an example of a ray of hope and light, in that on the 14th of April, next month, the Thompson Lane community will be hosting its Easter event and clean-up day. Yes, Bahamas, Thompson Lane is not broken. Additionally, we will be hosting our Harvest of Love this Saturday for our disabled constituents and our senior citizens on the Centerville Park, where we will be distributing baskets of fresh organic produce. The following week, Madam Speaker, in conjunction with the Bahamas Human Resource Management Team and the Zonta Club of New Providence, we will be hosting at the Stephen Dillard School Operation Opportunity, where we will be training our residents for interview preparation, resume writing, how to dress for success, and etc. But Madam Speaker, whilst we're on the point of Stephen Dillard, I would wish to highlight and to congratulate one young Mr. Jermaine Thompson, the head boy of that school and a proud resident of Milton Street from the constituency of Centerville. He is a shining example, Madam Speaker, of exactly what can come from the inner city when you endeavor to do your best. Madam Speaker, as the member for Cat Island, Rumkey, and San Salvador just said, we were recently visited by the royal couple from across the pond. But with your permission, Madam Speaker, I would wish to acknowledge some of our own local royalty. Miss Brenda from Lily of the Valley Corner, Miss Oughton from Mason Addition, Miss Archer from East Street and Ross Corner, and Miss Big Mama Rami and Miss Big Weeze from off of Montrose Avenue, and Miss Archer from Ross Corner and East Street. Thank you, Member for Kalani. I would also like to acknowledge, Madam Speaker, Mr. and Mrs. Elliott from Collins Avenue, Mr. and Miss Billy Gadet, and also Mr. Moon McPhee. Mr. and Mrs. Elliott from Collins Avenue. I said, yes, ma'am. Madam Speaker, I would wish to extend that large and great acknowledgement to all of our precious pearls. And this is a shining example, Madam Speaker, that we do not have to look very far to find heroes. They are right here in each and every one of our communities. Madam Speaker, having said that, I now turn to the main reason for my intervention in moving for the second reading of the following bills. A bill for an act to amend the Proceeds of Crime Act, a bill for an act to amend the Anti-Terrorism Act, to empower the Financial Intelligence Unit, to impose an administrative penalty on any financial institution who contravenes any provision thereof, and the bill for an act to amend the Register of Beneficial Ownership Act, 2018. These amendments are required to provide for the continued modernization of our international regulatory obligations, including providing adequate penalty provisions to be a deterrent to violations of the law, and to make certain required amendments to remain compliant with international best practices and treaties to which the Bahamas is a party. As Parliament would be aware, the Register of Beneficial Owners Act 2018, ROBO, was passed to provide for the competent authority to establish and maintain an electronic database of beneficial owner details for all corporate and legal entities registered in the Bahamas, and to permit search of the database of every corporate and legal entity registered or resident in the Bahamas by a designated person upon the request of specified authorities designated in the Act. ROBO, Madam Speaker, provided for the development of a beneficial ownership secured search system, better known as BOSS, and the implementation of BOSS brought the Bahamas into compliance with several recommendations and related requirements of the Financial Action Task Force, FATF. The full implementation of the boss system was a critical component in terms of European Union anti-money laundering blacklisting. The amendments provided for in the bill before us will assist in tightening the provisions and reflect requirements to further comply with international best practices regarding transparency of beneficial information of companies and other legal entities registered and incorporated in our country. The proposed amendments are as follows. A. Clause 2 of the bill seeks to amend Section 2 of the Act to introduce and define the terms law enforcement authority and supervisory authority, as this was not included in the original legislation. Clause 3 of the bill seeks to amend Section 11 to impose a duty on legal entities and registered agents to ensure that the information provided or recorded in the bill is accurate. Clause 4 of the bill seeks to amend Section 12 of the Act to provide for the addition of the Gaming Board and the Ministry of Finance to request the search of the secure search system. Requests for searches by the Ministry of Finance must only be made in carrying out its duties under the International Tax Cooperation Act, number 18 of 2010, and the Automatic Exchange of Financial Account Information Act, number 37 of 2016. The Attorney General may designate by order other authorities that would be permitted to make a request under Section 12 to search the secure search system. Clause 5 of the bill seeks to correct an error in the original legislation. Clause 6 of the bill seeks to amend the Act to provide for an administrative penalty regime, bolstering enforcement tools to deter non-compliance with the Principal Act and to comply with international best practices. Madam Speaker, the Anti-Terrorism Act 2018 was enacted to address the gaps identified by the Caribbean Financial Action Task Force, CFATF, Mutual Evaluation of the Bahamas 2017 published report. It contains provisions inclusive of those regarding the Bahamas' regime for combating terrorist acts, terrorist financing, and proliferation financing, interactions with the United Nations, international cooperation, and enforcement tools. The amendment being proposed to the Act empowers the Financial Intelligence Unit, the FIU, to impose an administrative penalty on any financial institution who contravenes Section 70 of the Act, amongst others. Members may note that this section calls for financial institutions to report any property used for the commission of offenses under this Act. In the original legislation, no criminal nor administrative penalty was assigned to this requirement. The amendment will assist the FIU in enforcing compliances with the provisions. Madam Speaker, the Proceeds of Crime Act 2018, also known as POCA, was one of 3 pieces of primary legislation that was occasioned to bolster our anti-money laundering regime. The Act is the law that embodies the Bahamas' legal provisions for its anti-money laundering, combating terrorist financing, combating proliferation financing regime. In review of POCA, it was found that a few provisions needed to be amended as follows. Clause 2 of the bill makes provision to amend Section 2 of the POCA Act 2018 in order to delete the term nominated officer and its definition and substitute the terms money laundering reporting officer, or MLRO, and the definition. And as it is a money laundering reporting officer that is relevant in our jurisdiction. Clause 3 of the bill makes provision for the amendment of subsections 2 and 3 of Section 6 of the Principal Act in order to align it or subject it to international anti-money laundering standards. In Clause 4 of the bill, there is provision for the amendment of Section 87 of the Principal Act in order to provide that any document obtained under production order is admissible in court. Madam Speaker, we make these amendments to maintain our position as a leading international financial center that strives to remain compliant with international best practices. As such, I think it is appropriate to update the country on our recent achievements in this regard. In May 2020, the European Union announced that the Bahamas was to be listed on its anti-money laundering blacklist due to the country being placed on the Financial Action Task Force gray list, jurisdictions under increased monitoring. The Bahamas had been placed on the FATF gray list since October 2019 at the Paris FATF plenary due to identified strategic deficiencies in its anti-money laundering and counter-terrorist financing and counter-proliferation financing regime. The Bahamas, Madam Speaker, worked to remedy the deficiencies in order to be removed from the EU blacklist. On the 22nd of December 2021, a meeting of the European Commission College of Commissioners was held, and the revision of the list of third country jurisdictions which have strategic deficiencies in their AML CFT regimes was discussed. In its assessment, the Commission concluded that the Bahamas has addressed the strategic deficiencies previously identified by the Commission in its AML regime, considering the available information. Accordingly, the Commission has decided that the Bahamas should therefore be deleted from the EU's AML blacklist. On Friday, the 7th of January, 2022, Madam Speaker, the European Commission adopted a new regulation to update the EU AML blacklist, including the delisting of the Bahamas. The Bahamas had progressive journey with the FATF, giving 40 recommendations for AML compliance. December 2015, the CFATF conducted a mutual evaluation of the Bahamas' technical and effectiveness compliance with the FATF 40 recommendations. The mutual evaluation report of the Bahamas was published in July 2017. The Bahamas was rated as compliant or largely compliant with 18 FATF recommendations and partially compliant with 21 FATF recommendations and non-compliant with 1 FATF recommendation. The Bahamas had the CFATF in November 2018 plenary and meetings was successful in obtaining 13 upgraded ratings of compliant or largely compliant in 12 FDA recommendations as partially compliant and 1 non-compliant recommendation of the 2017 Mutual Evaluation Report. The CFATF December 21 plenary confirmed 9 upgrades and 1 rating being maintained at a current level of partially compliant. Thank you. And unfortunately, 1 rating being downgraded. The Bahamas currently has 38 compliant and largely compliant ratings against the FATF 40 recommendations, and plans to apply for the 3rd and final time in May of this year for re-ratings and recommendations, 8 NPOs and 15 virtual asset service providers. We are looking to achieve a status that is rare amongst most countries, compliance with the FATF 40 recommendations at largely and compliant levels. Only 2 countries, Madam Speaker, have ever attained this status, with the Cayman Islands being one of them, and resident in our hemisphere. The Bahamas' goal to join the Cayman Islands at this lofty level in November of this year, post the review of our re-rating application. I also, Madam Speaker, think it appropriate to address the recent directives that are being issued in the Bahamas in response to the Russian war with Ukraine. The Bahamas, after considering the various actions that were being taken by the major financial centers, United Kingdom, European Union, United States, and Canada, the Cabinet gave its support for the Attorney General to issue directions pursuant to Sections 3B of the International Obligations, Economic and Ancillary Measures Act, 1993, and its amendment of 2019. These directions were issued to the financial service regulators and mandated that all licensees and registrants be required to conduct a search of their client databases to identify entities and individuals so sanctioned. The directions were issued on the 9th of March, 2022, and results by licensees and registrants was submitted on the 21st and 22nd of March this year. The submissions reveal, Madam Speaker, that there are 3 individuals identified, 1 company with assets valuing approximately $1.6 billion, comprising deposits, custody assets, assets held in trust, or other fiduciary structures, and investment in opportunities. It is important to note, of the assets listed above, only 7.5 million in assets are portfolio management custody assets. And the overwhelming value of the 1.6 billion are private company assets held in the Bahamas fiduciary structure and not bank deposits. We have very few accounts and structures of sanctioned persons in the Bahamas. It is also appropriate, Madam Speaker, to update the Bahamian public on an additional measure that is being taken to report being taken with respect to financial directives as a result of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Pursuant to Article 21, 2B of the Convention on Mutual Administrative Assistance in Tax Matters, better known as the Convention, the Cabinet of the Bahamas has determined that a public policy statement suspending tax cooperation and the exchange of tax information with the Russian Federation should be issued. Article 21, subsection 2A and B allows a party to the convention to decline to provide requested assistance on limited grounds, including to carry out measures which would be contrary to public policy. The Bahamas exchanges tax information with the Russian Federation pursuant to the provisions of the convention. This tax information is exchanged as part of a global collaboration to address tax compliance risks. Suspending the exchange of tax information means that the Russian Federation will no longer receive information under any of the Bahamas' exchange of information agreements settled under the convention. Exchange of information on requests, common reporting standard, or country-by-country reporting. This action, Madam Speaker, would be in keeping with actions taken by the United Kingdom and its dependent territories, such as the Channel Islands and Cayman Islands. Suspending tax cooperation and exchange of tax information with Russia, with the Russian Federation, may ensure that the Bahamas is not supplying the Russian Federation with information that could lead to an increased tax benefit or yield for that country. Madam Speaker, I wish to thank you for your indulgence, and with that, I so move for the second reading of what I term to be the Compendium of Financial Service Amendment Bills.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Is there a seconder? The chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Kalani.
Because financial bills are non-controversial and individuals, both sides try to move the country forward in the state of finances. I note the members were knocking on the table, acknowledging what has been said, but I only want to point out one thing, that the present government cannot accept the credit for what has been done. All the credit. On the 15th of August of last year, Madam Speaker, we were informed by the EU Commission that they would now commence a meeting via the Commission to delist the Bahamas. So it started on the 15th of August of last year.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Baines and Grantstown.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And honorable members in this great House of Assembly, good morning. I rise on behalf of the great people of the Baines and Grantstown constituency to second these compilation of financial bills tabled in this House. I will forever be grateful, Madam Speaker, and appreciative to serve as the Member of Parliament of the best constituency in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, my home, Baines and Grantstown. I continue to give thanks to the Almighty who has given me the abilities necessary to do the things that I have mandated or been mandated to do. However, Madam Speaker, on a sad note, it is with heavy heart that I rise today, not only to second the Compendium of Financial Bills, but also to extend my sincere condolences to the family of the late Anita Doherty, who passed away on Monday, the 28th of March, 2022 in Freeport, Grand Bahama. Ms. Doherty was the pride of West End community, a trailblazer in sports and education, not only in Grand Bahama, Madam Speaker, but across the entire Bahamas. She was a friend to all, a heroine of countless young women, a faithful servant of God in the Anglican community, a devoted mother, wife, and sister to her family, and a personification of what we all know as being Bahamian. I want to say on behalf of my family how much we are all thankful and appreciative of the work, sacrifices, and dedication of Ms. Doherty. She will sorely be missed, Madam Speaker. May her soul rest in peace. I further would like to express sincere condolences to the families in Baines and Grantstown who lost loved ones since my last debate. Additionally, I would like to publicly give condolences to Ms. Elizabeth Skabu-Raming, her daughter, Sharik Poitier, and Ramado Rogers Sr., and the entire family on both sides on the passing of Ramado Rogers Jr. just over a week ago. May the blessings of the Lord be with the family in their time of bereavement. Madam Speaker, we as a country are blessed and highly favored to have an honorable man such as our Prime Minister, the Honorable Philip Davis, to be anointed to lead the Bahamas in such a time as this. The Prime Minister, member for Cat Island, Rumkey, and San Salvador, I express my gratitude to you for your continued support and trust in me as your parliamentary secretary within the Ministry of Economic Affairs. The member for Cat Island, Rumkey, and San Salvador continues to make the best decisions possible for the good of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas and its people. Madam Speaker, I would also like to express my sincere appreciation to my minister, Senator, the Honorable Michael Alcides, for his steady financial and economic leadership as he continues to steer us through these treacherous economic times. Members, it's a new day, and we look forward to brighter days ahead under this progressive Liberal Party government. Madam Speaker, last week, the country had the honor of hosting the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge to our shores. I say thank you to all Bahamians. I say thank you to the local organizing committee. But I want to say thank you especially to one of our very own, as expressed by the Honorable Member for Cat Island, Rumkey, and San Salvador, to Ms. Leslie Bryce for a job well done in organizing the visit. However, Madam Speaker, while we celebrated the royal visit, our young men were engaged in turf war, killing one another on the streets of the province. I cannot sit in silence as we lose a generation of young men to senseless acts of violence. Over the last few weeks, approximately 8 to 10 young men were gunned down on our streets as though a human life has no value. It was painful to listen. It was painful to read the news on social media, to learn of the details of these murders. Unfortunately, Baines and Grandstand did not escape the saga, as a number of these killings happened directly in the center of our community. As a former police officer, I can only imagine the officers in the Criminal Investigation Department, the homicide section, the countless hours of visiting crime scenes, consoling loved ones, and spending countless hours conducting murder investigations. As a father, as a mentor, and as a coach, I feel the pain of the grieving parents, the siblings, the children, the family members and friends after learning of the senseless demise of their loved ones. Madam Speaker, I want to make a strong appeal in this honorable house to our young men and boys. Stop the violence. Put down the guns. Think peace and not war. Share love and not hatred. Walk away when confronted. And remember that the Bahamas is a real place and we need you. Madam Speaker, I was never so proud to see the leadership stance taken by the member for Cat Island, Rumkey, and San Salvador by summoning the key stakeholders from the respective agencies to a meeting at the office of the Prime Minister this past Sunday to seek to address the national crisis of murders on our streets. For that, I am so proud to be affiliated with a brilliant and a compassionate man such as the leader that we have to lead our country. Psalms 37 and 23 says, and I read, "The steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord, and he, meaning God, delighted in his way." But I want to remind the side opposite that when the righteous rule, the people rejoice. And that's in Proverbs 29. We all know the reciprocal side of that same verse. Again, we have proven to this country by addressing the crisis head on that this administration is ready and prepared for governance. This is what real leadership does. Leadership acts and acts decisively with a purpose and an objective. Madam Speaker, the amendments of these financial bills are yet another demonstration of a government that is being proactive for and on behalf of the Bahamian people. But before I continue, allow me to update the House on some of the projects and programs within my constituency. Last evening, we held a branch meeting at the C.R. Walker Senior High School. The meeting had hundreds in attendance. And that's no joke, hundreds. And the constituents of Bain and Grandstand are happy to know that their branch and member of parliament didn't forget them since the big election victory on the 16th of December 2021. Yes. Our guest speaker, was the Minister of Education, the Honorable Glenys Hannah Martin, who brought the message of the importance of education in Bahamian culture. She encouraged constituents to work with the Ministry of Education in restarting the education process within the country, and particularly within the Bain and Grandstand constituency and the inner cities at large. And I say restarting because we know of the learning loss that we have encountered over the last 2 years as a result of COVID-19. Her message was well received. It was a pleasure to officially have her as our guest in our constituency last night. I would also like to publicly thank the Minister of Education, Ms. Hannah Martin, on behalf of the Bain and Grandstand branch and the constituents for her informative words of wisdom. I would also like to thank scores of constituents for attending the meeting. I would like to thank our chairperson, Ms. Cynthia Meadows, and her executives for conducting a well-organized meeting. The curry chicken and white rice and corn was off the chain. Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, as we continue our journey as the New Day administration, my work as the Member of Parliament for Bain and Grandstand continues. I continue to meet with constituents every Tuesday from 4 p.m. at our constituency office and family center. Our office hours remain open from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., Monday to Friday. The Bain and Grandstand Skills Basketball Development Program for our young kids are conducted every Saturday from 10 a.m. to 12 noon. And I encourage parents to bring their young ones because this is totally free. Madam Speaker, when I started this program under the Cyborgs Basketball Club ban in 2016 on the George Brown Park through Dumping Ground Corner, A young man by the name of Centino Clark was the first to register on the first day. I am proud to say to this honorable house that Centino has gone on to higher heights as he is now abroad playing high school basketball in the United States, and his high school team won the Kentucky Boys Championship. State championship. Thank you. Okay. I want to publicly congratulate Centino on his accomplishment thus far. But Madam Speaker, I also want to congratulate his mother, Michaela, and his grandmother for seeing the vision and supporting their son and grandson on this basketball journey. Centino is a prime example that all is not lost when it comes to our young men in the Bahamas. It is our hope and prayer that more Centinos will emerge from our basketball skills development program in Bain and Grandstand. As May is the month for mothers in the Bain and Grandstand in the country at large, and in Bain and Grandstand, we are planning the first Single Mothers Forum and Children's Fun Day on the 6th and the 7th of May. The goal is to inspire, to uplift, to support, and to motivate our single mothers within the constituency. On Sunday, the 8th of May, which is Mother's Day, we will be recognizing and honoring the 20 oldest mothers as Mothers of the Year in Bain and Grandstand with a church service. We will shower them with gifts and other goodies, demonstrating our love and support for them. The plan for the Bain and Grandstand Summer Games are well on the way. A committee has been selected to spearhead this event, led by our very own Mark Knowles and his executive team. The games are scheduled to commence on the 27th of June and will culminate on August 1st with track and field at the Thomas A. Robinson Track and Field Stadium. Madam Speaker, we continue to support the local churches and pastors in the Bain and Grandstand constituency. And I look forward to meeting a group of community pastors who expressed their interest in partnering with me to assist in the Bain and Grandstand constituency. Reverend C.B. Moss is spearheading the organization of this particular meeting. Madam Speaker, I now turn my attention to the amendments of the collection of financial bills, namely the Proceeds of Crime, Anti-Terrorism, and the Register of Beneficial Ownerships Amendments bill tabled in this House. I often have to explain to the constituents that the Bahamas doesn't exist in a vacuum. And as a result, from time to time, is required to make amendments to the laws of the Bahamas to conform to international conventions. To this end, this administration is seeking to make the amendments to these bills as painless and as seamless as possible by implementing governmental procedures, policies, and infusing technological solutions that will mitigate the unwarranted hassles encountered by its citizens and businesses that interact with the government. The government is seeking to enhance the ease of doing business, Madam Speaker, through its digitization program and the e-Bahamas Revolution agenda, incorporated within the Blueprint for Change. The objectives of this initiative are as follows. We want to be able to streamline government procedures, making them available online to reduce the cost of government bureaucracy, increasing the use of ICTs, of information and communications technology, in the public sector by the government, and lastly, increasing transparency of the government activities and strengthening the auditing and control mechanisms. Madam Speaker, the Progressive Liberal Party has been called on by the Bahamian people to clean up the mess left behind by the Free National Movement. When they were known by a different name at a different time, they suppressed the hopes and dreams of Black Bahamians, denying us their right to share in social and economic prosperity.
Chair recognizes the honorable member for St. Anne's.
I'm rising on a point of order, and I believe it's in accordance with Rule 3316. The member for Bain and Grantstown is using language to disparage the loyal opposition, the Free National Movement. And I ask that his recent comments about efforts by this party under any previous name, which is nonsense to begin with, was to hold any part of the citizenry of the Bahamas down from economic gain.
He's done?
Completed, yes, thank you. 3318, Madam Speaker, when any offensive, abusive, or insulting words are used by a member in the House, it shall be expunged from the record. And also the imputations of improper motives, personal reflections on the members shall be dealt with by the chair under the rules. We had asked that those comments by the member for Bain and Grantstown will be removed from the record. He had indicated that this party, under a previous name, had attempted to hold a particular section of the citizenry of this Bahamas down from economic gain, and that is untrue.
Thank you, honorable member. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Baines and Grantstown.
Madam Speaker,
Madam Speaker, have you made a ruling on the matter?
What are you asking me to do again?
That the comments made by the member for Bain and Grantstown be expunged from the record. Those comments relating to this party under a previous name having held down members of the Black community.
Can you respond?
Please. The chair recognizes the honorable member.
Madam Speaker, I withdraw.
Thank you, honorable member.
I'd like to move on. However, I'd like to say that the Progressive Liberal Party ushered in the social revolution when they ran this economy after 1997 to 2022, the Bahamian people called us again in 2002. The people needed compassionate and steady leadership after the aftermath of COVID-19 and the unfulfilled work post-Dorian. They call a brave man to right the ship. I don't know if you want us to withdraw that, but the facts are clear. Okay. When millions of Bahamian dollars in the Disaster Recovery Authority goes unaccounted and seem to have disappeared or ended up in someone's bank account. Again, the people call on the Progressive Liberal Party to clean up their mess and hold those responsible accountable.
The chair recognizes the honorable member for Kalani.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I think I'd like to remember to withdraw the statement where he said millions and millions of dollars of Dorian's money was basically mismanaged and ended up on someone's bank account. If the member can't name whose bank account, I'd like him to withdraw such statement.
Thank you, Member for Foxman. I could call a name, but no.
No,
Okay.
no.
The Minister of Finance got up and said what happened to the money, so he's making a fair comment on it. What the heck do you want him to say?
Who's on the floor, Madam Speaker?
Yes.
You.
I'm using the word, gentleman using the word.
Yes,
Then in
yes, we'll have that
typical,
withdrawing.
in typical free national
Parliamentary
movement
language.
fashion, Madam Speaker,
Yes, a ruling, yes.
after deceiving the Bahamian people,
You didn't just hear me say withdraw? You listening to that? Yes, I am. No, I wasn't whispering. I have a whole mic. Okay. Okay. Okay, thank you. Continue, Honorable Member.
after deceiving the Bahamian people, Madam Speaker, and using the public funds to prop up political cronies, they have the unmitigated gall to stand in this hollowed house and place and act as though nothing happened. This crop, a free national movement, wants the Bahamian people, Madam Speaker, to believe that they have somewhat found religion and now wish to lead this country again. But there's an old adage that says, the devil is a liar. Madam Speaker, these compendia of bills also represent our continued attempt to clean up after the previous government. The amendments set forth in the Proceedings of Crime, the Anti-Terrorism, and the Register of Beneficial Ownership Amendments bills are our way of bringing clarity, equity, and common sense to the interpretation and the application of certain provisions outlined in the bills. I wish to speak specifically to Clause 4 of the Register of Beneficial Ownership Amendments Bill 2022. Clause 4 of this bill seeks to allow the Gaming Board and the Ministry of Finance to request a search of the secure systems databases. Just so that I can repeat, Clause 4 of this bill seeks to allow the Gaming Board and the Ministry of Finance to request a search of the secure search systems or databases. And again, Mr. Deputy, it is our intentions to use information and communications technology as effectively and as seamless as possible to ensure that we can do just that without having to cause unnecessary, undue pain and pressures to internal and external governmental agencies. This is but one of the amendments to our legal framework and would foster what we refer to as a once-only approach to digitization. The amendments also further illustrates that this administration's move towards digital transformation and Bahamas revolution. Mr. Deputy, a whole of government approach is a system where information is recorded only once and then shared across ministries, departments, and agencies via what we refer to as the Great Bahama Bank, the interoperability platform. To help this government to be more efficient, more reliable, and secure in its delivery of services to external and internal customers. In our blueprint for change, we are committed to transforming the Bahamas into a digital society using the best of breed technologies, systems, and people. The Bahamas will continue to modernize and improve on the regulation and monitoring of the sector to keep in line with best practices, to continually be viewed as a first-in-class preferred destination for international financial services. Mr. Deputy, before I leave, I would like to remind members of the Bahamas government's Digital Symposium, which is scheduled for tomorrow, the 31st of March, 2022, at 8:30 a.m. at the Margaritaville Bahama Beach Resort, number 1 on Bay Street. Again, this is our quest and our desire to move this Bahamas to an intelligent digital society, and we encourage all members to participate and be in attendance. Mr. Deputy, being in Grantstown is proud to second the motion in support of these compendium of bills. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. As many, the chair recognizes the member for East Grand Bahama.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy. Mr. Deputy, let me first give honor and praise to God for the ability and the opportunity to stand in this chamber. None of us ought to take this for granted. And so I'm eternally grateful. Let me also say how grateful I am to the people of East Grand Bahama who have provided me with an opportunity to be able to speak on their behalf. And I will work as hard as I can to ensure that I make them proud. Before I get into the details of the bills, Mr. Deputy, I wanted to also lend my voice to add condolences to the family of Miss Anita Doherty, who I known as Mrs. D. I have not known her as some have known her in terms of her international and national abilities in athletics and so on. But I first came to know Mrs. D as a student at the what I know as the Freeport Anglican High School, but now Bishop Michael Eldon High School. I was a grade below the member for Pine Ridge, and I also knew her back then as well, before she was the minister. She was just my friend Ginger. But yeah, I used to run track with her too.
In the same race?
No, not the same race. I was a distance runner. I used to run the 800 and the 1500. I wasn't very good, but I used to run it. But Mr. Deputy, Ms. D has made a tremendous contribution in the lives of thousands of students in Freeport and I believe throughout the Bahamas. Her legacy lives on with all of her students. And she had an amazing ability to show love and show toughness all at the same time. she could tell you how much she love you, and then tell you that you're doing a bunch of foolishness all at the same time. She was a no-nonsense. At that time, she was the vice principal, but she rose to become principal. But she was a no-nonsense person. And she has molded us and shaped us. And I can say personally that a number of the lessons that she has taught me has helped to shape me into the person that I am today. And I am eternally grateful to her and to her family. And so I wish to say on behalf of myself, my wife, who also attended the Freeport Anglican High School, or Bishop Michael Eldon High School, on behalf of my classmates, the class of 1992, we all feel the pain, and we all wish our family, we wish them God's strength, and we pray that her memory and the lessons that she taught live on. I also, Mr. Deputy, want to recognize another powerful woman, Miss Merlene Feaster, who is one of the, or was one of the matriarchs in the Sweeting Ski area. She was known as, again, you know, it's something about the Bahamian women who are no-nonsense Bahamian women, and who are able to show love and show correction and show strength all at the same time. But I also want to wish her family also God's strength as they deal with her loss. Mr. Deputy, I also just wanted to say a few comments with respect to what the member for Bain and Grantstown said. And you know, these are financial bills, so they ought to be relatively non-controversial. In fact, a lot of what has gotten us to this point has been as a result of the work, the hard work that has been put in place by, that has been left in place by the Free National Movement, left in place also by the technical professionals who I'll speak to as well. But on the one hand, when you criticize, on the other hand, you use the same foundations that you met in place from the very same people that you criticize. So the once only principle that the member spoke about. Well, we designed the once only principle. The once only principle came up as a result of our trip to Estonia.
Chair recognizes the honorable member for Grand and Bainstown.
I listened to the member from East Grand Bahama claim the once only principle. But I can say to the member for Grand Bahama, back for East Grand Bahama, sorry about that, back in 2010, 2012, the Ministry of Finance engaged in a project with Singapore way back then, and it was called the Bahamas Government Online. The once only principle was not started with the program in which you speak. So I'm very familiar with the once only principle. And again, it was not started under this particular program. It may have been talked about more, but it wasn't started then.
Thank you, member.
You mentioned the once only principle, which is one example, but you also mentioned the Great Bahama Bank. The Great Bahama Bank, again, was designed by the Free National Movement, built by the Free National Movement. No.
You want to claim that?
I can't claim that one.
Can't claim that.
If you want to claim it, you can have it, but I can't claim that one. But the interoperability platform, again, that the member spoke about. You know, on the one hand, you criticize us, but on the other hand, you build on the same foundation that we left in place. My Gateway. Again, the platform, again, you criticize us on the one hand, but on the other hand, you build on the same foundation that we left in place. Absolutely. That's the point. That's the very point that I'm making. So when you criticize, you must also acknowledge that you are only standing on the foundation that you met in place. That's all I'm saying. So again, these financial bills are non-controversial financial bills. Mr. Deputy, the Free National Movement has worked tirelessly to uphold the international reputation of the Bahamas in the financial services industry. We will continue to support legislation that will help us fulfill our international obligations. I'm advised that this compendium of bills seek to fulfill our international obligations and keep us off of the blacklist. Mr. Deputy, we live in a global community, and therefore we must operate within the rules of that global community, even if we are not the author of those rules. The Free National Movement in our time in office has overseen a tremendous effort to ensure that we were removed from the FATF, the CATF, France, and the EU blacklists. In May of 2021, the Bahamas made application to the CFATF for the re-rating compliance of 10 Financial Action Task Force recommendations, and to review a compliance of 2 recommendations that were revised post the country's mutual evaluation. The CFATF has re-rated the country in relation to recommendations 6, 7, 24, and 33 from partially compliant to largely compliant, and recommendations 19, 22, 26, 27, and 28 from partially compliant to compliant. Today, the Bahamas is compliant with 18 recommendations and largely compliant with 20 recommendations, positioning the country in the top tier against the FATF and the FATF-style regional body global network. This means that we are compliant in 38 of the 40 of the recommendations. And this was done prior to the last election. These bills will help to complete our work on the 40 recommendations. So the reality is we have done the heavy lifting to bring us to a point where we were compliant with 38 of the 40. We now are moving to become fully compliant so that we can comply with the full 40 recommendations. Also, in March of 2021, the government of France removed the Bahamas from the French list of non-cooperative states and territories in tax matters. From the moment the F&M learned that the Bahamas was listed, we set about to vigorously disprove France's assumption about our commitment to the international regulatory standards on tax cooperation and exchange of information for tax purposes. The discussions with the French authorities were fruitful and fostered a deeper degree of cooperation between our 2 countries, thus resulting in the Bahamas being removed from the list or the blacklist with France. Mr. Deputy, on the 22nd of December, 2021, a meeting of the European Commission College of Commissioners was held, and the revision of the list of 30 country jurisdictions which have strategic deficiencies in their AML CFT regimes, AML blacklist, was discussed. So that was done in December when they had the College of Commissioners. The engagement with the EU, though, began in August of 2020 and culminated with the Bahamas submission of additional information and data in early October of 2021. In its January 2022 report, the European Commission removed the Bahamas from the blacklist and stated, and this is a quote from the Commission, in 2020, the FATF congratulated the Bahamas for the significant progress it has made in improving its AML CFT regime. The Bahamas has strengthened the effectiveness of its AML CFT system and addressed related technical deficiencies to meet the commitments in its action plan and remedy the strategic deficiencies identified by the FATF in October of 2018. Therefore, the FATF delisted the Bahamas from the list of jurisdictions under increased monitoring in December of 2020. The Bahamas is therefore no longer subject to the FATF's increased monitoring process. In April of 2021, the Commission established additional benchmarks. So, in other words, the rules changed in April of 2021. We were already removed from December of 2020, and the rules changed in April of 2021, which the Bahamas has now addressed. The Bahamas has implemented the measures which are sufficiently comprehensive and that meet the necessary requirements to consider that strategic deficiencies identified under Article 9 of the directive has been removed. So, Mr. Deputy, we have to pay tribute and we have to say thank you to the former Attorney General, Carl Bethel, QC, who worked tirelessly with his team. We also have to pay tribute to the National Identified Risk Framework Coordinator, Dr. Cassandra Nottage. We also must pay tribute to the members of the International Legal Cooperation and Compliance Units of the Attorney General Office for their tremendous hard work and dedicated service to our country. Mr. Deputy, I personally sat in Zoom meetings with these professionals, speaking with European ministers of finance and senior European officials, making the case and building relationships to ensure that our jurisdiction is understood and our jurisdiction is appreciated. Mr. Deputy, we on this side also have consulted industry and are confident that industry has approved the changes in the bills, and we therefore have no issues and agree with the bills. But Mr. Deputy, where do we go from here? Do we sit back and wait for the next set of rules to come and change the game? Or do we innovate our way and stay ahead of the game? We must continue to press forward with innovation in our financial services sector. The F&M recognized the potential with fintech and the development of regulations for this fast-moving industry. I recall attending and speaking at a cryptocurrency conference. In fact, it was held right here in Nassau, looking for, and at this conference, members of the conference were looking for a jurisdiction that could provide a regulatory framework for fintech. This resulted in the Bahamas Cryptocurrency Conference, which was held in Grand Bahama, where further discussions took place. The FNM ultimately approved and passed the Digital Assets Regulation Act, or the DARE Act, which is now being copied, as I am told, by countries like Dubai. Absolutely. The Securities Commission. We must also, and I agree with I agree with the member for Exoma that the Securities Commission, who went out and benchmarked the other jurisdictions, particularly Hong Kong and Malta, who benchmarked those jurisdictions and who came up with the regulatory framework. I have no knowledge of that. Well, I have no knowledge of that. Yeah, well, listen, I accept that. If that was the case, you should accept the credit just as though the same. But I have no knowledge of that. But if it is the case, then you deserve the credit for it as well.
It was passed by the FNM in this house.
I sat in meetings with the Securities Commission when the Securities Commission took the legislation from Hong Kong, they took the legislation from Malta, and they worked on that legislation, and they presented the Free National Movement with a bill. It was approved by the Free National Movement. It was brought to the House by the Free National Movement, and it was passed by the Free National Movement. Now, if you are able to say something different, then also, we have also seen, as a result of the DARE Act, the FTX come to the Bahamas and the positive impact that they have already made to the Bahamas. We now need to focus and drive this industry, Mr. Deputy. But not just the regulation and the policy. We need the infrastructure to ensure that companies that want to set up businesses do not get bogged down in the bureaucracy. Mr. Deputy, it will take training, and more training. This is why we must begin to look at training in this industry now. We started training high school students connecting with BTBI with IT courses. We started through a program that started in Grand Bahama and went nationwide. It started as a summer program, and then it evolved into a full all-year program, where instead of students doing their summer jobs, that those summer jobs, then they would be trained by BTBI, and they would be trained in IT courses, and they would receive their IT certifications while they were still in college, while they were still in high school. I attended a graduation last year, and the graduation had, between Freeport and Nassau, almost 500 high school students who were graduating, not just with a diploma, but they were graduating with IT certifications. And those same IT certifications also added to 1 year college credits of information technology degree. So if they wanted to get a degree in information technology from BTBI or similar schools, they only would need to have one additional year in order to have an associate's degree, but they would still have their IT certifications. We must ensure that we build on the same things that were in place. We must ensure that, for example, companies like FTX, that they work with BTVI, that they work with the College of the Bahamas or the University of the Bahamas, that they work with high schools. Because if we want to really build this industry, then it starts with training. I can recall, Mr. Deputy, having a conversation with one of the larger tech companies in the US. And they said a very, very interesting thing when we were seeking to lure them to come to the Bahamas. They said, coming to the Bahamas, it's not an issue. But where the issue is can you tell us how many persons right now, if we came, would have certifications to work in the technology field? Can you tell us how many coders that you have? Can you tell us how many software developers you have? Can you tell us how many persons in this industry? And that was the light bulb moment that said, in order to get companies to come, we must make sure that we train sufficient persons in that field if we want to get companies to come. And so I encourage the government to use companies like FTX, who have already come. They've already invested. They are already here. To use them to build this industry. It is the future. I also encourage the government to continue to be fully behind the central bank's sand dollar. This was also a part of the Free National Movement's plan. I also want to congratulate the central bank and the central bank governor, Mr. John Rowe, for the tremendous push and job that he has done with respect to the sand dollar. This is something that we must grab a hold of and we must build on, because we are one of the only nations to be able to have a digital currency that is backed by the central bank. Countries all over the world are seeking to catch up to where the Bahamas has already gone. We have already, and the central bank has also made the announcement that they have made the connection, which was a very important point that central bank was working towards, which was making the connection between the sand dollar and our regular banks, which makes it easy for persons to be able to move sand dollar into their bank account and take sand dollar out of their bank account, to change it from sand dollar to ordinary money. We also, when we were in office, had the first ever transaction where you could pay in sand dollar for a government service. These are the kind of innovations that we must not criticize and down, but we must build on and take to the next level. And I want to encourage the member for Bain and Grandstand. I am behind him because we left it at a certain point. We need you to take it to another level. The country needs you to take it to another level. We did our part. We took it to a certain point, and we are now behind you to push you, to drive you, to help you, to take it to another level. Finally, Mr. Deputy, on a similar issue, we must also treat as an opportunity the Global Minimum Tax Initiative. We are advised that while industry has agreed to serve on a steering committee, they want to be more engaged. I would also question why the opposition was not invited to sit on your steering committee as well. Yes, we await the results of the Deloitte report, but the public engagement and industry engagement on this should start now. Mr. Deputy, in my final minutes, I also want to permit me to also comment on the government's decision to help straw vendors and other vendors in Grand Bahama with a $500 assistance. Let me first start off by saying this is not a criticism. Let me first start off by saying this is not a criticism. I support any assistance that will help those struggling in Grand Bahama. The F&M did so with providing small business grants of up to $5,000 to straw vendors. We did it before Dorian, and we did it after Dorian. During COVID, we created a special tourism-related assistance where we provided $200 a week for all self-employed persons working in the tourism industry. Unfortunately, you have decided not to continue with this initiative. I would suggest that we go back to providing the $200 per week for all tourism-related self-employed businesses until such time as the Grand Bahama tourism product moves ahead. While we are happy for the straw vendors, I question what will happen for the taxi drivers, the musicians, the store owners and their employees, the hotel workers who are only working a few days a week. The Small Business Development Center also can continue the business continuity loans that we left in place. We also encourage you to put in place additional resources with respect to electricity assistance, which is going to be needed because electricity is about to go up in Grand Bahama. And finally, we ask the government to reconsider its decision to put a stop to the SIRS order for building supplies in Abaco and in Grand Bahama. My understanding is that the SIRS order, unless you have applied before the 31st of March, which is tomorrow, that you will not be able to receive any further assistance under the SIRS order. We ask the government to reconsider this, to extend this. There are persons in Abaco and in Grand Bahama who still require the assistance. Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy.
Thank you, Honorable Member. As many. The chair recognizes the member for Central Andrews.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm pleased to present to this honorable House my contribution on these bills set before us today. And as always, it is indeed a pleasure to rise on behalf of the great people of Mangrove Key, Central, and South Andrews. Mr. Speaker, I wish to convey my condolences to the families in the constituency that have lost loved ones recently, and more notably, Pastor Wilfred Stubbs and Pearl Moxie from the Mangrove Key, who will be buried this weekend. I will be in the Mangrove Key area for my community meeting tomorrow night, and I will convey my condolences personally to the families. I note, Mr. Speaker, that these set of bills are focused on securing our financial systems and ensuring that our financial sector remains viable, competitive, and in compliance with international regulatory bodies. With the amendments of these bills, Mr. Speaker, this New Day government is focused on its commitment to clear up pending matters in the financial services which may adversely affect our international listing. It is yet another goal set out in our blueprint for change, which we brought to the Bahamian people for their consideration and which they fully accepted. Trust, Mr. Speaker, undergirds the existence and development of financial markets. The effective functioning of the financial sector relies heavily on the expectation that high professional, legal, and ethical standards are observed and enforced. A reputation for integrity, soundness, honesty, adherence to standards and codes is one of the most valued assets by investors, financial institutions, and jurisdictions such as ours. Mr. Speaker, financial systems across the world are at risk of abuse through money laundering, proceeds of crime, terrorist funding, and corruption. While we recognize the need to fight against these illegal activities, it takes a collaborative effort by all sectors to achieve the goal of minimizing the risk and eliminating the attempts of those who wish to circumvent the law. Mr. Speaker, law enforcement has been mandated through the Financial Intelligence Unit and the Compliance Commission to work with our financial institutions to ensure that illegal activities do not impact financial systems. The analysis and reporting of such activities is necessary to ensure that financial institutions are not unwitting conspirators in any financial crimes. In the past, Mr. Speaker, financial institutions have been victims and perpetrators or instruments of financial crime. As victims, financial institutions can be targets for embezzlement, securities fraud, insurance fraud, pension fraud, and credit card fraud. As perpetrators, which is not very common, Mr. Speaker, financial institutions can misappropriate client funds, sell fraudulent financial products, or engage in self-dealings. And as instruments, financial institutions can be used to hold funds that are the proceeds of criminal activities, with these activities not necessarily financial in nature. Therefore, the introduction of these amendments to these bills was a welcome addition to our legal framework. The goals of good governance and transparency are being put into practice in the financial services sector. The establishment of the Compliance Commission and the Financial Intelligence Unit some years ago was meant to not only establish a framework for the financial crimes reporting, but also as a regulator and enforcer. Mr. Speaker, we have laid 3 amendments to this honorable House: the amendment to the Anti-Terrorism Bill, the amendment to the Register of Beneficial Ownership Bill, and the amendment to the Proceeds of Crime Bill. The Financial Intelligence Unit, or the FIU, plays an important role in our strategic goal of combating the efforts of money laundering and financing terrorism. Mr. Speaker, it is a national agency responsible for receiving, analyzing, and transmitting disclosures on suspicious transactions to the authorities. Combating the crimes of money laundering and financing terrorism is essential to the integrity of our financial systems. But if these efforts are to be successful, traditional law enforcement methods need to be supported and strengthened. Working with our financial institutions, the FIU analyzes critical information on those transactions that may hide criminal activities. We must ensure that all of our efforts are coordinated and the Financial Intelligence Unit works in conjunction with comparable agencies in other countries. Financial institutions hold critical information, Mr. Speaker, on transactions that may hide criminal schemes. Although this information is covered by necessary confidentiality regimes, it has to be made accessible to law enforcement agencies to enable them to trace criminal money channels. However, Mr. Speaker, if our efforts for eliminating money laundering and terrorist financing are to be successful, our laws must be strengthened, adapted, and/or adjusted to meet the current standards through technology and innovation. We have already established certain policies within financial institutions, like the KYC, or Know Your Customer forms, the PEP, declarations for politically exposed persons, and suspicious activity reporting. While law enforcement agencies have access to financial information in a limited capacity, it is necessary and also required by the international bodies like the IMF that these agencies have the ability to engage financial institutions when suspicious activity is noted. The amendment of the Anti-Terrorism Bill seeks to empower the Financial Intelligence Unit to enforce penalties on those financial institutions who fail to comply with provisions to the Act. This includes the institution itself or any employee, director, or senior manager. Mr. Speaker, the amendment to the Anti-Terrorism Bill will strengthen the powers of the Financial Intelligence Unit and its ability to penalize those who do not respect the law. The nature of a terrorist, Mr. Speaker, can be described as a person who uses unlawful violence and intimidation, usually against civilians, in the pursuit of political or ideological goals. The terrorism threat remains high and has taken an international focus within the past 20 years. Smaller countries like the Bahamas must remain committed to limiting the actions of those who would cause harm. Today, terrorists use more advanced technologies like GPS systems, drones, and encrypted messaging systems to communicate. Terrorists continuously modify and adjust their efforts to collect and move monies, which aid their unlawful actions. We must ensure that our financial services are not tainted by the vile efforts of terrorists. Therefore, the amendment to this bill represents this Davis's administration's intention to protect the integrity and stability of the financial system. The Financial Intelligence Unit, Mr. Speaker, and the Compliance Commission, in their work, have faced some unique challenges. It is now necessary to expand the scope of their work and empower them to impose penalties on financial institutions that fail to comply within the laws. Mr. Speaker, it should be noted that financial information related to terrorist activities is different from financial information related to other crimes. Therefore, it must be highlighted that training is an ongoing necessity for staff as the scope continues to widen. The range of reporting entities can involve non-financial professions, so training in the nature of reports is a must. Similar to the Anti-Terrorism Bill, Mr. Speaker, is the amendment to the Proceeds of Crime Bill. While the former is specific to any suspected terrorist financing activities, the latter is broader in scope and includes illegal weaponry, weapons of mass destruction, drug and human trafficking, as well as money laundering and terrorist financing. Both laws work in tandem, providing coverage for others in certain circumstances. The amendments to the Proceeds of Crime Bill will also strengthen the legislative scheme for the recovery of criminal assets through confiscation of those assets after a conviction. International authorities like the IMF and the World Bank are increasingly concerned about loopholes that may be exploited by money launderers and terrorist financiers who seek weak or ineffective legal frameworks. Financial system abuse has potentially negative consequences for a country's macroeconomic performance. It imposes welfare losses and may also have negative cross-border side effects. Globalization and financial market integration, in particular, facilitates financial abuse. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, strengthening these laws is one step in showing our commitment to international cooperation and strategic alignment in this fight. Globally, an unstable financial sector increases the risk of volatility of capital flows and the dampening of foreign direct investment. As such, Mr. Speaker, this government is working to do what it can to offset the negative effects any illegal activity may have brought about to our financial institutions and our financial sector. Mr. Speaker, while we wish to uncover those actions that reek of illegality, we also desire to protect those who are law-abiding, upstanding citizens from any scent of dishonesty. As such, the Davis administration has put forward amendments to the Register of Beneficial Owners Act. Mr. Speaker, the initial Register of Beneficial Ownership Act came into force in 2018 as part of the efforts to cooperate with international authorities in identifying the beneficial owners of entities incorporated, registered, or formed under the Companies Act and the International Business Companies Act. These include partnerships and non-profit organizations. The Act provides a secure search database system that allows access by designated persons only, specifically from the Office of the Attorney General. It must be stressed, however, Mr. Speaker, that the beneficial owner registration is not accessible to the general public, other than the registered agent itself. The information maintained on the registered agent's database will be accessed using encryption technology. Each designated person must be subject to security vetting and be determined to be a fit and qualified person. The designated persons will only execute a search of the secure system on receipt of a formal request that is certified to be proper and lawful by one of the following authorities: the Office of the Attorney General, the Financial Intelligence Unit, the Central Bank of the Bahamas, the Compliance Commission, and the Securities Commission. The amendment of these bills seek to include the authority of the Gaming Board, the Inspector of Corporate Services Providers, and the Ministry of Finance in the secure database system. Another amendment in the bill clearly defines who is the law enforcement body and the supervisory authority, so as to eliminate any doubt or challenges about the police force, the defense force, the Customs Department, or the Immigration Department, all of whom will be able to act in an enforcement capacity. Mr. Speaker, it is important that our citizens understand and acknowledge that the time for anonymity is over. Anonymity enables many illegal activities, such as tax evasion, corruption, money laundering, and financing of terrorism, to take place out of the view of law enforcement authorities. As such, the government is working to prevent the misuse of companies for money laundering or other illegal activities. Mr. Speaker, these guidelines are in place based on recommendations made by the Financial Action Task Force, Anti-Money Laundering Standards, and Combating Financing of Terrorism. These documents are a component in financial security, protecting against identity theft and ensuring that financial institutions are not involved in money laundering, human trafficking, organized crime, drug, or weapons trafficking. These amendments will strengthen the administration of the law in that there are penalties associated with infractions. We are boosting our enforcement of the law. We are eliminating non-compliance, and we are complying with international best practices, Mr. Speaker. This New Day government wishes to support the integrity of the financial sector and law enforcement efforts. While we do so, it is mentionable that the process for the registration of beneficial ownership remains easily accessible and easily utilizable. This promotes compliance from all of our stakeholders. And of course, a streamlined process will go far in the perception of our country's ease of doing business. Mr. Speaker, although I have given my contribution on the amendments to these bills and the impact to our financial services sector, one must know that I cannot yet sit without underscoring the impact of financial services on the people of Andros. We have seen over the past few years, Mr. Speaker, how financial institutions have up and left our family island. This has to be reversed. Residents are left with ATM machines that are inconsistent and unreliable. This has to change. Family members have to find ways to withdraw and deposit funds and save for traveling to Nassau in order to do so. Between Mangrove Key and South Andros, weather is a determinant on whether the bank will open or not. In this modern, technologically advanced time that we live in, this should not be so. The people of Andros and every family island deserve better. I speak with the confidence of knowing that the simple challenge can be fixed and will be fixed by the Davis administration. That example is representative of an existing shared financial service in Southern Andros. However, in the north and central parts of the island, we must also restore the financial institutions that once were. Andros may be separated by constituency, but it is not separated in advancing and progressing the cause of the people. So I speak once again. With the support of my brother from the north, the MP for North Andros and the Berry Islands. Mr. Speaker, we came today to strengthen our laws to satisfy the international bodies. However, we must never forget, Mr. Speaker, that we are to satisfy our fellow citizens and residents whose daily lives are also impacted by our financial services sector. Mr. Speaker, Mangrove Key, Central, and South Andros supports these amendments. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Member. As many? The chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Central Grand Bahama.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Sorry, Mr. Deputy. I'm sorry. I'd like to begin by offering condolences to three families in Grand Bahama. My family, of course, who we suffered the loss of a very close relative to a heart attack on Sunday, Dan Rasty Lewis from Waterkey. So I want to offer condolences to his immediate siblings, to Mr. Otnell Sanders, also the senator of Waterkey, passed away over the weekend, and to the family of Aaron Fowler, who lost his daughter to a car accident last night. So may their souls all rest in peace and rise in glory. I also want to say hello to my family, my wife and my daughters are watching right now. So I want to say hello and hopefully I'll see you guys tonight or tomorrow, first thing in the morning. Mr. Deputy, parliamentary colleagues, I would like to offer more in-depth condolence to a patriot of the Bahamas and the Grand Bahama. I know previous speakers already mentioned Mrs. Anita Doherty, but I want to go more in detail, having had a very personal relationship with her. She was an educator, a sporting legend, a philanthropist, a community leader, but most of all, she was an inspiration for all who came into contact with her. It is with great sadness that I offer my sincere condolences to Mrs. Doherty's family on behalf of myself and the FNM Central Grand Bahama Constituency Association on her recent passing, as she was a member of Central Grand Bahama. Mrs. Doherty was truly an icon and a giant of a woman. Mr. Deputy, though she is gone, her memory and her legacy will continue to live on in the lives of thousands of persons who she would have come into contact with. Mrs. Doherty began her teaching career in 1970 at Hawkswood High School. And before transferring to T.W. Davis High School in Nassau, where she taught for 4 years. She then came back to Grand Bahama and assumed a teaching position at Freeport High School at the time, where I attended in 1979 until she retired in 2017, some 47 years later. Mrs. Doherty had a renowned sporting career as she represented the Bahamas in the pentathlon at the Commonwealth Games in Edinburgh, Scotland in 1972. As a stellar athlete, yes, crazy, and I'm East Grand Bahama, I know her on the athletic level also. Yes, West Grand Bahama, she's one of your homegirls. Yes, she mastered field hockey, tennis, softball, and netball. As a tennis player, she is one of a few players to be named a Triple Crown winner after dominating the ladies singles and both ladies and mixed doubles event in one tournament. She was in a class all by herself with dynamic athleticism. In addition to her strong sporting abilities, Mrs. Doherty had been involved in community activities such as director of the YMCA Keep Fit, president of the Bahamas Netball Association, secretary of the Grand Bahama Softball Association, and treasurer of the Interscholastic Sports. She was also involved in the 1977 Carifta Games, was president of the Grand Bahama Tennis and Squash Club, president of the Grand Bahama Athletic Association, vice president of the Bahamas Association of Athletic Association, and secretary of the Co-ed Pilot International. In recognition of her successes in sports, Mrs. Doherty was inducted into the Grand Bahama, and thank you while she was alive, Hall of Fame in 2005, and the Bahamas Sports Hall of Fame in 2011, truly solidifying her as one of the greatest Bahamian athletes who ever lived. Thank you. She served her country proud on all levels of the sporting industry, being a beacon and guiding light for the sports enthusiasts that came after her. But her hard work and dedication didn't just stop with her own greatness, Madam Speaker. She was committed to building a nation which showed through her long-standing philanthropy. Mrs. Doherty joined the Pilot Club of Freeport in 1982 and became president of that club in 1988. So she was well-rounded. She became governor of co-ed clubs for Pilot International at their convention and was a founding member of the Pilot Club of Lucaya. She was also a board member of the YMCA and Principal and Vice Principals Association. Mrs. Doherty even had a turn in politics, yes, having served as chief counselor of the city of Freeport from 2005 to 2008 after successfully running for local government in the Lucayan constituency, now Central Grand Bahama. And on a personal level, when I moved from Waterkey to Freeport High School, she really made me feel welcome. And just to brag a bit, she put a team together, a 4x1 relay team that was unbeatable. Never lost a race. Never came second. And I will name the members of the team. West Grand Bahama is asking for names. Sean Burrows, that known as Ninja. Sean Cumberbatch. Sean Fox. 3 Seans, and there was one spoiler. Iron Lewis. And yes, we went undefeated. And so on behalf of that unbeatable relay team and the class of 1983, I'd like to offer condolences to Mrs. Doherty and to the family of Mrs. Doherty, and send our prayers to her husband, John, her son, John Jr., daughter-in-law, Tara, grandchildren, and the entire family. I pray you find comfort in knowing that she was an angel here on earth, and God has called her back home to continue to watch over you and the entire Bahamas as she did throughout the entire life. And I heard the Minister of Sports spoke early this morning, and I'm happy to hear that he's going to continue on with the 6th edition of the Bahamas Games. We put a lot of pieces in motion prior to September 16th, and yes, that fateful day. And I am hoping that he would share more ideas or more details, because the intention at that time was to have the Bahamas game sprinkled throughout the Bahamas. It was not just a Nassau game, with events being in Grand Bahama, in Andros, where we now have the largest gym in the country, in Exuma, and thoughts were also for parts of Abaco and Eleuthera. We want to share the wealth around. So I'm hoping that the Bahamas Game Secretariat will still keep those ideas under consideration and have the Bahamas Games and not the Nassau game. And in some instances, perhaps we should name a portion of that game in honor of Mrs. Anita Doherty. I now turn my attention, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Deputy, to the suite of bills currently up for debate, in which we have no objections as the opposition. However, the record must reflect that this is simply, again, a copy and paste move by this new day copy and paste government. And we don't mind you copying and pasting our good ideas, as was indicated by the member from East Grand Bahama. The former Free National Movement government initially brought these bills in 2018. We knew, Mr. Deputy, how important it was to ensure our global standing of financial reporting met and surpassed international best practices. The Minister administration made it a priority to keep the Bahamas in good standing with international financial regulators. Our legislative agenda focused on introducing and amending laws to make our country and jurisdiction compliant with the requirements of the European Union, Financial Action Task Force, FATFs, Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD, and others. As a result of our hard work, the Bahamas was able to strengthen the effectiveness of its anti-money laundering, countering the finance of terrorism, and AML-CFT regimes, as was spoken to by the member from Andros. We addressed technical deficiencies to meet the commitments of our action plan and stuck to them, so much so that we were able to remedy the deficiencies identified by the Financial Action Task Force in 2018. Mr. Deputy, it was not an easy ride, but the FNM government delivered. Despite remaining under heavy scrutiny in global tax watchdogs, the Bahamas was removed from the EU's list of non-cooperative jurisdiction for tax purposes after determining that the country had implemented all the necessary reforms to address concerns regarding economic stance, removal of provincial exemptions, and automatic exchange of tax information. At last report, as was indicated earlier, the Bahamas was compliant with 38 out of 40 FATF recommendations to strengthen its AML-CFT framework with the Caribbean arm of the regulatory body, and is firmly on par with the top FATF member states, including the United States, Switzerland, and, of course, Ireland. Amendments to Register of Beneficial Ownership Act 2018. The enactment of the Register of Beneficial Ownership Act 2018 allowed for the development of a Beneficial Ownership Secured Search System, or BOSS, which ensured the Bahamas' compliance with FATF recommendations and requirements. Mr. Deputy, the recommendation amendments are acknowledged and supported. Amendments to Financial Transaction Reporting Act 2018, and I'm almost done. The Financial Transaction Reporting Act 2018 sought to implement the necessary Know Your Customer protocol for the financial industry and ensures financial service providers conduct customer due diligence.
The chair recognizes the member for West Grand Bahama.
I think the member could be advised by his side that he is debating what you did not want to be included in today's debate.
Just a little, sir.
But so you're not supposed to forecast.
Yes.
So we will come back to that.
Yes.
Thank you.
Not a problem. Not a problem. The Anti-Terrorism Act 2018 addressed gaps identified by the Caribbean Financial Action Task Force Mutual Evaluation of the Bahamas 2017 published report. It repealed the Anti-Terrorism Act 2004 and contained provisions for combating terrorist acts, terrorist financing, and proliferation financing. The Act, again, also outlined regimes for interactions with the United Nations, international cooperation, and enforcement tools. Mr. Deputy, these recommendations to this Act are also acknowledged and supported by this side. Amendments to the Proceed of Crime Act 2018, and lastly, the Proceed of Crime Act 2018, which is the foundation of the Bahamas' legal provisions for its anti-money laundering, combating terrorist financing, combating proliferation financing regime. The legislation, in concert with the amendments to the Financial Transaction Reporting Regulations 2018 and amendments to the Anti-Terrorism Act, propelled the Bahamas' fight against money laundering, terrorism, terrorist financing, proliferation of weapons of mass destruction, and proliferation financing. It is because of these sweeping financial regulations and statutory protocols that has brought the Bahamas from being a perceived tax haven with no oversight or accountability to a compliant jurisdiction with global best practices and a competitive financial regime with international recognition and support. These pieces of legislation combine critical in the country's exit from the EU's anti-money laundering Blacklist and FAFTS increased monitoring grade list. So once again, Mr. Deputy, this administration continues, like I said, to enjoy the spoils of the arduous work of the previous administration. But we understand and acknowledge that government, like you said earlier, are continuous, and we want them to succeed. Because if they win, we all win. We just want to ensure that it is done with transparency and accountability. The suite of amendments being debated today will only have moved the work forward. As always, the official opposition is here to provide support for this New Day government. I thank the people. Oh yeah, I'll say it again. As always, the official opposition is here to provide bipartisan support for this New Day copy and paste government. I thank the people of the Bahamas, and I thank God for the many blessings over the Commonwealth in these tumultuous times. I am continually honored and grateful for this responsibility to be a representative for the people of the great constituency of Central Grand Bahama. I will continue to do my part to advance our country forward, upward, onward together. Central Grand Bahama, rest.
Thank you, Honorable Member. As many. The chair recognizes the member for Fort Charlotte.
Madam Speaker, Mr. Deputy.
Mr. Deputy Speaker.
Mr. Deputy.
The chair recognizes the honorable member for West Grand Bahama.
Take the lunch break. So, Mr. Deputy, I call for suspension for the lunch break. We'll return at 3 o'clock this afternoon.
Is there a seconder? It has been moved and seconded that the business of the House be suspended until 3 p.m. As many are in favor will remain seated. Those opposed will stand. The motion is carried. The business of the House stands suspended to 3 p.m.
Sorry.